Hey everyone, welcome to the Darshan Talks live stream. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. It's my mission to help you trust the products you depend on. As you know, I'm an attorney, I'm a pharmacist, and I advise companies with FDA regulated products. So if you think about drugs, wonder about devices, obsess over pharmacy, this is the live stream for you. I do have to clarify, I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney, so it's not legal advice. I'm a pharmacist, but I'm not your pharmacist, not clinical advice. And our guest today is an innovator. He's a compliance guru, but he's not your compliance guru and he's not your innovator. So he's not giving you any kind of advice that's specifically right for you. I do these live streams because they're a lot of fun, because I find myself learning something new each time. But it would be wonderful to know if someone's actually listening. So if you like what you hear, please like, leave a comment, please subscribe. If you like the conversation itself, please share. And you know what? Just reach out, comment, let us know what you're thinking, ask questions. You can always find me on Twitter at DarshanTalks, or just go to our website at DarshanTalks.com. Our podcast today is about one of my favorite topics. It's about innovation. So if you are in the life sciences and you're trying to figure out, is innovation happening? Is all innovation basically COVID based right now? Our conversation today should hopefully um, tell you that that's not true. Our guest today is the VP of Digital Innovation. He spent 18 years as CIO, Chief Information Officer of United Therapeutics, 3 in digital innovation, and he focuses on the intersection of technology and medicine. So our guest for today, Shola Oyewole. Shola, I know I mispronounced that, so could you please pronounce it properly first?
Thank you. It's Shola
Yep,
Oyewole.
Oyewole.
Yes.
Close, sort of.
Close.
I messed that up. I appreciate it. Thank you. I will try to work on it. So Shola, first of all, you had a really, really interesting, varied background. You've spent 18 years at, I mean, you've been at United Therapeutics for a very long time at this point, correct?
Correct.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about innovation in general in pharma. When do you think we changed from being, let me discover the new drug, the latest, newest drug, to how do we harness and look for new opportunities using digital technology? What's been changing? How are we sort of addressing that now?
Well, thank you for the introduction. Nice meeting you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd say the pandemic has given us an opportunity, and by us, I mean both the industry, patients, and the government. You saw a healthy alliance of the government and pharmaceutical companies banding together to come up with drugs. That is probably one of the reasons why the drug development process was so fast. Now you can imagine if this practice continues, right? Maybe we could get drugs faster to the market, get them approved faster, get patients the drugs that they need sooner rather than later. I suspect that being the catalyst, the COVID, the drug development will improve drug, innovation.
So you say that, but we've been using technology for a while. I mean, one of the favorite things I like to think of is the FDA adding Amy Abernathy to their team. Obviously, Amy's left already and is now working with Google, but she was a Flatiron. And to me, and I forget when this was, probably about 2018, 2019 is when she joined the FDA. It shows the FDA's willingness to start looking at technology as a core component of what they do. And obviously, we've had different laws since 2009 that have been talking about it. But do you feel like we're harnessing technology um, in the many, many ways that we possibly could? Or do you think that we're still lagging behind what the rest of the world's doing?
Well, so it depends. It depends on the part of biotech or pharmaceutical the company is focused on. I can tell you about what we are doing at United Therapeutics.
Sure.
Our focus is in a very, very rare disease space called pulmonary hypertension, right? And of recent, we are focusing on the future of drug development, right? And this is using mathematics. Essentially, you create a mathematical model of the disease, mathematical model of the molecules, and you apply math to math. All this is done in computers, right? To me, I think that is the future of drug development, R&D. You know, using computers, actually digitalizing what you're doing. So rather than the old-fashioned way of testing on, um, plants, animals, or whatever it is, you could actually simulate all this in the computer first. Create your mathematical models before you try on anything else. To me, that is the future of R&D.
So, but you're right. I think that that's the direction the FDA is headed. I used to work with a company called Certara, and they are one of the leading innovators in that space. So I think I remember reading somewhere that they said something like 95%. I could be getting the numbers wrong, to be completely clear, but something like 95% of all applications use one of the Certara functions. So the point being, I'm agreeing with you that the future is using these um, digital platforms. Do you think though that those platforms are getting better, or do you find that the technology is still in its infancy?
The platforms are only as good as mathematical model your scientists can develop for the molecules as well as for the disease. Because think of it
Right.
this way. Think of a virtual reality session, right? You have
Yeah.
avatars and all that. These avatars were developed mathematically. The avatar was designed to look as precisely as you would look. Sometimes they
Yeah.
tell you to upload a photograph of you and they place it on top of an avatar, and then you're walking around in this 3D world. Well, so I am not a mathematician and I'm not doing much justice in explaining what they do. But what I think it is you've got to find a mathematical representation of the disease, a mathematical representation of the molecules that you have, okay, and then apply these and see what cures that disease. And the mathematical result is what you now develop into a compound or to a drug. Now, the speed at which you get there depends on the capacity, the capability of your scientists, and these are mathematical and computer experts. It's a marriage of both, right? And it just depends on how difficult those models are to develop. I do not think we're far away from there because we're harnessing all kinds of technologies that are available today. People have access to high-speed computing, all kinds of programming languages, and these days scientists are learning computer science, as well as biotech and biology in school. So the marriage of think of the confluence of all these forces coming together. The new skill set of the R&D folks of the future are much more different than say 20 or 30 years ago.
Which is really interesting to me. You talk about this idea of um, pharmacometrics and the idea of these of sort of drug development using technology, which is I think amazing. But in the end, what it's really using is population science. And what I mean by that is using tons of data from tons of different sources to say what does this mean um, in terms of drug approvals. Do you see a future where you can apply this population science to making individual decisions for patients, or is that one step too far and it's very difficult to do that?
So, are you talking about personalized medicine? Because personalized medicine is specific to you, to the patient, and we may have the same issue, but the drug given to both of us may be composed differently. That is different from crowdsourcing or collecting, data from a larger population size. So, which are we talking about?
So I'm talking about a combination of all of those. So what I mean by that is when we talk about crowdsourcing, we're talking about getting a collection of data, saying that in general, this is what we can expect from this drug or this device in terms of approval. So FDA, based on this data, we think you might be able to give us approval. What I'm taking it is to the next step, which is the FDA is giving you a generalized, we expected this drug or device to work overall because we got all of this data. However, what the FDA does not do, and it's not within its jurisdiction to do, is to talk about the practice of medicine, which is we have a choice of 50 different drugs out there. Which drug is right for you as the patient? So I'm not necessarily talking about personalized medicine as much as medicine that's right for you, the practice of medicine. And do you think that we're going to see a future where technology is going to play a bigger role in deciding what is the right medication for an individual patient?
I believe so, and that might bleed into our next conversation. I chaired a conference just last week. Blockchain in pharmaceutical world, and for the last few years, I have been talking about leveraging the public blockchain as a massive electronic medical records, storage system. Okay.
Yeah.
And the point of that is I'm trying to democratize the ownership of medical records. When you go to a doctor or to a hospital, right, the data about your care belongs to you, Darshan.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it resides in multiple mainframe systems, cloud systems that belong to the hospital. You actually have no idea what they have on you. You really don't. All you do is trust that they have some information. You get billed by your insurance company, you get a prescription, and then, you're satisfied. What I'm saying is all that data, all that information, right, should be stored, right, in the public blockchain. Not necessarily in the public blockchain, but at least the hashed versions of it. And you, Darshan, with your mobile device, swiping right, you can grant temporary access to anyone you want, okay, to your medical records, to your treatments, to your prescriptions. So think of payers, think of your doctors, think of your pharmacists and all that. You swipe right, you're sharing information. Now, the beauty of that system is a part of your medical records that sit in the public blockchain would be some data that pharmaceutical companies can ping to see if you're eligible for a trial, for a study. That same part of that record could also be used to personalize approved medicines because your genetic makeup is stored there. You have granted permission, right, for pharmaceutical companies to take a peek and see if you're the right fit for a certain version of the drug or if you're a right fit to participate in a certain clinical trial. Today, without you knowing, your credit report is being sniffed at by financial companies all over the world. In fact, if they look at it too much, it dings your credit score. But you have no idea who's looking. The way you know is you get all this junk mail, at the end of the week. Oh, somebody is offering you credit. Well, what I'm saying is, let's reverse that a little bit. Let's have you and I own our medical records. Let us choose whom we want to share it with. Okay. Let us, if we want to be compensated by providing that kind of access to pharmaceutical companies or whomever is interested in generating drugs for us, then that is a different conversation. But I'm saying, first, let us own our medical records. Let's share them as we want to. And a part of that would be genetic makeup of each one of us that companies can take a look at and say, hey, this drug better fits you, Shola, based on your genetic makeup than, say, Darshan. It could be the same headache, but a different therapy.
So it's interesting you talk about that because I've done several different conversations, several different interviews on exactly these types of issues. The one question that pops up to me over and over and over again as a lawyer is the issue of privacy, which is, yes, it would be amazing if we all put that information out there. However, the fact is that what we're recently discovering and this has been seen in a few different hacks, but people can still access and break into blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, which we thought was impossible several weeks ago. So I guess my question is, putting your information onto the blockchain, onto a DLT, we're going to use blockchain for short, but onto the blockchain, do you think that raises privacy concerns, especially when you're thinking about something like GDPR or CCPA, where the information needs to be able to be withdrawn if the patient so chooses?
Well, so you bring a very, very, very good point. So I'll address the GPDR part. The data belongs to you already.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to forget about yourself, what do? Delete it. It's you. It's under your care. It isn't sitting in a third-party facility. So
Okay.
I address that. From a privacy point of view, what you're actually storing on the public blockchain is just a hash.
Right.
Not the actual
okay.
information. All that is saved in a third-party system because the blockchain is not optimized for random access. It is a very slow system because of its nature, the block nature.
Right.
But what it keeps is a hashed version, a pointer to where your actual medical record sits. Okay.
Right.
And the privacy. So if anybody hacks a public blockchain, all they're going to see is a bunch of numbers.
Right.
It is meaningless to them. Right.
Right.
And
right.
again, more importantly, not one company owns your medical record. You have it under your control. It is encrypted with your keys. You have a public key that you share with providers, you share with the pharmacy, you share with your doctor, you share with your family. But all these can be revoked by swiping left.
Right. So I'm thinking about what you're suggesting, and I think it's interesting because we're in a time when everyone is talking about privacy and about digital ownership. So as you know, you talk about GDPR, which is probably the most considered privacy law out there, maybe outside HIPAA. But the point being that GDPR goes out and says the data, you have certain rights to the data. I have to go back and double check, but I don't think it officially says you own the data. I think you have the right to edit, you have the right to change, you have the right to like a few different things. Similarly, CCPA says the same thing. None of the laws come out and say you outright own the data. Do you think that that's a step too far? Or do you think that it's best to enumerate what the word own means? And that means edit or change or withdraw or whatever it is.
I would say the latter, but then you raise a very good point because that which you own is you, your name, and everything about you. When work has been done with you, you have been enhanced, right? The person that did the enhancement probably owns, the enhancements they did to you, right? But you pay for it. You pay insurance premiums. So somehow it does belong to you eventually at the end of the day. And you're the lawyer. I mean, I don't know how this is going to go in court, but I mean, today, when you go to say Google and you do a search and 2-3 days later, you start getting spam on your system related to the search. Do you feel violated? Do you feel like you were watched?
I do.
Okay, but Google has a right because they gave you search for free.
Oh, that's the question, right? But did I have the option to say I'll pay for it? Would choose that option if I was given that option.
Okay, and that's a whole different question, right? So maybe there should be Google search paid and then Google search free. And for the freebies, they can track you, and for the paid, and I love that idea. So I'm saying I already pay a premium to get medical care. I'd love to own that data. In as much as you have enhanced me by giving me prescriptions and taking care of me. The reality is, it is mine. It's paid for. Why shouldn't I own my own data? I am responsible for my data. I'm responsible for the care, for the keep. I'm also responsible for wanting to forget about myself, the GPDR thing. I think if you give people ownership of their own data and we give them the correct infrastructure to secure it, etc., and even monetize it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
think of that. Every time I take a peek at my medical record, a smart contract is executed, and you pay me what, a penny, two penny,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I am making passive income on my
Mm-hmm.
medical records. Today, my medical records are spread over so many hospitals that have different versions of me out there,
Mm-hmm.
inaccurate at best, right? We say centralize it, have it managed in the public blockchain, have us regulate who we want to share it with. I mean,
So you raise a really interesting concept, which is you're changing the paradigm from someone else owns the data, but we have rights to it as individuals, to you own the data, and then you actually give rights away. And when you talk about this idea of give rights away, you raise a couple of interesting comments that I think are worth exploring. One of which is this idea of work for hire. And what I mean by that is when you take a job with anyone, I take a job with anyone, the contract we sign specifically says if you invent something while you're part of this employment, that belongs to me because the work you're doing is quote unquote work for hire. In the same way, what I hear you saying is that if you put data onto the blockchain, ignore data onto the blockchain. If you use my data to come up with something, theoretically, the work you did is work for hire, and therefore that also belongs to me. Is one twist. The other twist to the same thing could be you go, yes, I own it as part of work for hire, but you take the second component of that and you say, but you get a non-exclusive right to the data to use for XYZ reasons, a right which I retain the right to withdraw whenever I want. Did I
I
lose
like,
you?
I like the latter. I mean, I am no lawyer, but I like the latter option where I get to give permission
Mm-hmm.
to whomever I'd like to that
Yeah.
wants access to my medical records and
Yeah.
would like to be compensated if
Yeah.
that permission gives you, the third party, a way to generate revenue. It's up to me if I want to donate it versus
Sure.
generate revenue, right? But I think the data is about me,
Mm-hmm.
all right? The data belongs to me. The data was collected on my behalf. It was work that was done to make me healthy.
Yeah.
It wasn't done for free. It was paid.
Right. Right.
So, and I know this is very, very simplistic, but I am
Mm-hmm.
not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. But I'm just saying, for the longest time, we have given away data, our private lives for free.
Right.
Credit
Right.
agents know more about you and me than we will ever know about ourselves.
So, so let me ask this question. You talk about, and you raise a really interesting concept that intuitively I knew exists, but I'd never actually put into words, which is you talk about this idea that different hospitals and different providers have different versions of you, depending on when was the last time you went to them, which I think is such an interesting concept. But point being, um, do you do you think that data should have a finite life somewhere? And what I mean by that is just because I gave you consent, do I have to proactively withdraw the consent, or should that consent automatically get withdrawn at the end of 30 days, 90 days, 3 years, whatever that number is? And because the implications of that are dramatic, because payment needs to be done within 30 days. The moment you say that data gets withdrawn, it forces people to try to act within those 30, 90, whatever days timeline it is. Or do you think that that's a step too far because that would disrupt business as we know it?
That's a very good question. So, a part of the sharing at the time you share the swipe left, swipe right thing I was telling you about,
Yeah.
you can preset the expiration date
Mm-hmm.
because you have a long-term relationship with your doctor, with your
Mm-hmm.
pharmacy, with your
Mm-hmm.
payers,
Yeah.
etc. You may give them unlimited number
Yeah.
of days to access your medical records. It makes sense. And if you ever change doctors, you change insurance companies or whatever, you revoke and then share with your new, with your new partner. So the thing we should remember with the blockchain, because of its immutability, things cannot
Mm-hmm.
be deleted. They're there forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're there forever, encrypted, hidden, and under your control.
Right.
Okay. So in answer to your question, you can revoke access whenever you want. Guidance will be as simple as this. Insurance companies may need 60 days in order to pay,
Mm-hmm.
to review and pay whatever, whatever. So in your mind, when you swipe right to share with your primary insurance company, you're probably going to say 90 days of sharing or infinity because you are with them. But if you
Right.
change insurance companies, you swipe left, you revoke from insurance company A, and then share with insurance company B infinity number of days. It is all managed by you, the consumer. And we're going to make a lot of mistakes. We're going to revoke when we shouldn't. And in such instances, I mean, there's going to be a learning curve here because many people are going to say, listen, I don't want to own my insurance. I don't want to own my own medical data. I don't trust me to own it. I want the hospital to hold it for me. And that's fine. We can have a
Right.
hybrid situation where hospital systems have some version of your medical record, but I would like, one version of truth sitting outside where I control who I share it with.
So the question, so it's funny you say that because I'm trying to think through this, and I'm thinking of the myriad of ways this can be problematic. One of which is, let's say I have an insurance company
Yes.
that I give access to my data to. Does that mean I've given it to just the company or its subsidiaries? What about its affiliates? What about the companies that help the company, help the insurance company? Or is that one step too far?
Um, I would say if you trust insurance company A, then the assumption is you trust all the subsidiaries and partners upstream from there.
That's a hard thing to agree to because I don't know the subsidiaries and partners.
You do today. You trust the insurance companies today. Somehow they're making payments. Somehow they're dictating care for you.
See, I disagree with
They
that.
didn't decide that out of willy nilly. They have a whole bunch of analysts and partners sitting behind the scenes doing all this for you. We have to
See,
trust at some point.
I disagree with you on that point. And the reason I disagree with you is because I don't trust them. I'm forced to accept that they have my data. And so there's a big difference between me agreeing and therefore trusting and them doing it because they can and I have no say in the matter. The question is, the moment I have a say, will I still give those same rights away?
Okay, so you raise another very good point. So how about we do this? We say insurance company A, for me to trust my data with you, I like to know who your partners are. Okay.
Right.
And I'd like a separate agreement with each one. Every time your partner needs to do some work on behalf of you, insurance company A, they need granular access. Now,
Yeah.
mind you, your medical record is vast. It has many, many sections, your dental
Right.
records, etc. You don't necessarily have to share everything with everyone. You could say for partner A, B, and C working for insurance company A, these are the sections of your records they need access to, not everything. And for those that you don't trust, do not give them access. But then remember that for insurance company A to do its job very well, it needs all its partners working in concert
Yeah.
together. We can't say, we don't like these ones, but we like this one. You know, the question at the end of the day is, do you want to get reimbursed or not? And,
Right.
and I think it is something we'll have to step into, and it will encourage transparency, you know, with the partnerships. And I don't know. I mean, I'm an optimistic fella. This could happen.
No, I think that there's a great opportunity there, but I think it depends on a few different things. I think it depends on, first of all, getting into true identity management, which we as a world have done a terrible job with. So identity management, I think everything from Microsoft to Google have been trying to figure out how to do identity. Facebook's tried to do identity management. They simply haven't gotten to it, and they can't pull it off yet. So it's a big issue. Assuming you conquer the issue of identity management, then you get into the practicalities of the issue, which is, yes, maybe Shola's smart enough to actually decide who to give access to and who not to give access to. But will my grandmother or my father have the same knowledge to say, yes, I want this level of granularity and this is too much granularity? And I love the concept of it. I think the devil's in the details.
Correct.
And I would say that Apple should be in charge of that because they seem to get the perfect level of detail right. On the other hand, Google gives you more granularity, which is where you tend to lose people. So I don't know which one's right. But I think that's a wonderful place to end the conversation, mostly because, as you know, I aim for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm at 32 minutes already.
Oh, well. Can I just address that
Of
grandmother
course, please.
part? I'd say for those that are not comfortable about this technology, because it is technology, they could delegate a trusted person to handle it for them.
They could.
So for your case, you are very savvy. Grandma will delegate her care to you. So by swiping right, she gives you delegate rights where you do the necessary swiping left or right with a third party. It is what we do anyway today when our parents ask for care. We review the insurance, bills, and we help, mitigate and we help.
I love that you raised the issue because I'm going to address it and then we because you could go down this pathway. But imagine, so here's what I think you're telling me. You're telling me, Darshan, grandma can trust you, but they shouldn't trust a corporation that is going to be held to certain laws. If I know that my grandma will be able to generate X amount of money because of her data, and I give rights away willy-nilly, there's very little chance she's going to be able to sue me and get something out of me. On the other hand, she has the right to do that with the company. So it raises a whole new level of personal issues that simply don't exist right now because grandma trusted me today. What should she trust me tomorrow when I have that level of granularity over what makes her her?
So today, when grandma gets a bill from the insurance company, they say, hey, we're covering this care. You pay this $65. And grandma doesn't know. She calls you. She says, what's this? And then you sit on the phone and you walk her through it and you explain all that to her. It's the same thing. Except you didn't digitally, you're swiping left and right.
The difference, however, is that in the case of that bill, grandma can go to the insurance company and say this bill is wrong. However, in the case of the app where I'm swiping left and right, who does she go to say it's wrong?
She called you first.
That's my point. Then I'm suddenly taking on that responsibility.
Well, then guess what? When grandma says, hey, I want to delegate access to you, you're like, no, ma'am, I don't want you to sue me for making the wrong mistake. I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's an opt-in thing. Like for those that are, like I said earlier, if you're uncomfortable managing your own medical records, fine. It can sit in a third-party system. You can still have the public blockchain to secure it, to secure the hashed version that would access it. That's fine. But for those that are more comfortable managing their own care, I mean, for instance, you wear a Fitbit, Apple Watch, they're all collecting data. I'm saying
Yeah.
rather than that go to Fitbit servers or Apple servers, stream all that into my medical records. I want a horizontal and a longitudinal view of myself, right?
Oh,
If I want to market it, I want to know much more about myself. If you can collect all this information, that is what I advocated.
I'm 100% in favor of your idea. I think the practicalities are where everyone's going to start disagreeing, and there's going to be no clear consensus. So it's going to land up being, I think, in many ways, I'm not sure I want Apple or Google deciding how it should be done. I I kind of want the government to decide, but I'm not sure that's that much better.
So, well, what the pandemic has done was it also helped catalyze this idea because there are many apps out there that you could use to track your COVID vaccination status, but
Yep.
leveraging the public blockchain.
Yep.
That is one element of your medical records. Your status.
Yep.
Are you vaccinated?
Yep.
Yes, no, when, what, whatever, booster shot, all that. How about adding other things like Fitbit, like and it's all managed by you. So it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope.
In a good way, because people are good. People over time want a way to indicate their vaccine status in a very convenient way. They're going to grab one of these apps, and before you know it, the app is saying, well, you can store this information, you can add this information, you can add this information. Where is it all going? It's going into a repository somewhere where it is secured by the public blockchain. So what better mechanism do we have than a highly distributed, highly accessible system than the blockchain?
So I'm gonna question it, and we really should be like slowing down, but this is such a fun conversation. The issue I have with a concept like that, I love the idea of it again in a concept perspective. However, the fact is that the moment I have that data on a app that I can show I have COVID vaccination done, and you should let me into this building because I've had my COVID vaccine, you get into the concept of vaccine passports.
Yes.
And the moment you get into the concept of vaccine passports, first of all, people already have issues with the idea that someone, it's very reminiscent of Nazi Germany, where you had to have demonstration that you fit in and show me your papers argument, right? So today it's COVID. Tomorrow it could be something else. Yes. And how do you draw that line? Because now your argument of I don't have it handy goes away, because now everyone's going to say, show me your vaccine passport, and tomorrow show me something else, because it's all going to be easily available. Do you meet these conditions? Show it to me. And I don't want to, and yet here I have to. So it raises issues of privacy that we probably hadn't contemplated, but are very easy downstream effects. And as you put it, it's that slippery slope we go down.
It is. And I do respect privacy, and I do know that this could be abused.
Exactly.
But then if I needed to get into a bus, a metro,
mm-hmm.
and it was a requirement for me to be vaccinated before I could get on, I'd like a convenient way to show it. Flash, I am vaccinated. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if you recollect, but there was a time when we had yellow cards inside our passports. Every time
I don't actually know.
You don't? Oh, well, for me, growing up, I had a yellow vaccination card I had to fly with in my passport all the time. Every time I had a vaccination, there was a stamp there. It's worn out, it's dirty, it's old, it will get lost. All we're saying is let's transfer that to some kind of digital record. And while it's there, include my Fitbit information, include my Apple Watch information, include everything else that I think I might need to figure out my health.
We're never going to finish this conversation because it'll always keep going. But so let me sort of, I 100% see your vision. I also 100% see the slippery slope we can go down, which I think is super fun. And we've got to have you back again to continue this conversation because it's so much fun. As you know, I'm going to ask you a few different questions. So my first question, based on what we've discussed, what would you like to ask the audience?
Would you be comfortable owning your own medical records if you know it's secure, in transit, secure at rest, encrypted, hashed, but very accessible to only people you trust and easily revoked by the swipe of a finger? Would you be comfortable managing and owning your own electronic medical record?
So I usually try to answer the question first. So I would be very comfortable owning. I'm less comfortable managing. I'm even less comfortable trusting someone to manage my medical record. So I think it's a slippery slope. So we'll see how that plays itself out. The truth is, whether or not I like it, that's the direction we're going. I know as you do, several people who are working in that space as we speak. The question is, how successful will they be? Because as we know, Google in the last week and Apple in the last week announced that they're disbanding their health units, which speaks to how difficult this process is. So I don't know what the future looks like, but I know that the future is going to be interesting.
May I just add?
Please.
The reason they are finding it difficult is they're trying to find a way to monetize it.
Okay.
After all, what is the angle for them? Do they love you that much? No. I mean, they've got to figure out, how do I make money from this? And how do you make money from this is you cannot, because the data sits in mainframes in hospital systems. And those mainframe systems are not going to give it to you for free. Or Google. No, it's not going to happen. It has to be the reverse, meaning the grassroots, you and I saying, listen, we want our data, we want to own it. It has to come from the bottom up.
We can have a whole conversation about that. So that's so interesting. So next question for you. Over the last month, what's something you've learned that you'd like to share with the audience?
Over the last month, what I've learned over the last month is the importance of vaccination, particularly for the COVID-19 and preparing for the Delta variant. To be properly vaccinated gives us the freedom to do that which we must do, to grow,
right?
To help patients. I've lost friends. I know people that have suffered terribly, and it's But I'm grateful that we have an approved vaccination. I'm grateful that more people are taking this in seriously, and I'm super happy that schools have started and students can go back and continue learning. This momentum, we must try to keep up by ensuring everybody is comfortable and gets vaccinated.
Very cool. And for that, take a look at your screen. Get vaccinated, to quote Shola. My last question for you. Just in case people can't see it, you can reach Shola on via his email, Shola at unither.com for United Therapeutics. Shola, is there another way for people to reach you?
I'm also on LinkedIn. You can search for me on LinkedIn. Same name, same email address, rather.
Very, very cool. And last question for you, Shola. In the last week, what is something that's made you happy?
My daughter going back to school this morning. She'll be riding the bus for the first time. She's a fourth grader, and nothing makes me happier than seeing her super independent, super happy to make new friends in fourth grade and get back into the grind of things. So I do encourage everyone, please get vaccinated so our kids can stay in school.
Very, very cool. On that note, Shola, I do hope you'd consider coming back. This was a lot of fun, and thank you for being a guest.
Thank you. It's been my honor. I appreciate it. Thanks. And I look forward to catching up with you.